Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Monday, June 23rd. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Texas game in 68 days, the game against Michigan in 159 days. If you're planning your next event, why don't you make it unforgettable with Grateful Griddle, Columbus's favorite food truck, serving up smash burgers, gourmet sandwiches, and good vibes. Book your catering today at gratefulgriddleoh.com. All right, so the Buckeyes just wrapped up a very busy recruiting weekend. 17 official visitors. Want to know all about that? We'll be talking about that a little later on in the weekend. I can tell you that Berm has shared some initial intel already on the Huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus. So if you have been thinking, hey, maybe I should join Buckeye Huddle at some point, this would be a tremendous time to do that. Lots of great information there. Lots of very lively conversation about that information as well. So sign up today at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So on today's show, instead of football, we're going to be taking a little bit of a turn, and we're going to be talking a little Ohio State basketball. Towards the end of last week, Ohio State head coach Jake Diebler held a press conference. It's one of those things I have been thinking, I need to do a show on basketball at some point, just sort of touch base on where things are right there, because there is a lot going on and a lot of new faces. Today is that day. So, all right, let's start with Jake Diebler talking about this summer and how it's different from last summer, which was, of course, his first as the new head coach of Ohio State.
Well, for starters, we've played more 5-on-5 this summer already in what is a week and almost a half than we did all summer. So I think availability so far, Lord willing, it continues, has been an important difference for us. I thought that was impactful as we tried to implement system, both offensively and defensively, and build chemistry, quite honestly. So being able to play and compete and go out and execute the stuff we're working on has been a good change to get started.
There's a lot changing in the college basketball world, and we will get to some of those new faces who are shown up at Ohio State in just a minute. But one of the other big pieces of news in the college sports world is the House settlement that was finalized. It's been officially approved, and now that everyone's sort of figuring out, okay, what does that actually mean for us? What does that mean on the ground for all these different schools and all these different sports? So, okay, Jake Diebler, what does it mean for Ohio State basketball?
Yeah, well, I think the encouraging thing about being at the Ohio State University is we're going to be on the cutting edge, and under Ross's leadership, feel real confident as to, once everything truly is settled, because I still feel like there's a lot of questions, but once everything's, truly settled, I think that's going to mean a great thing for our entire department, and certainly for our basketball program.
At this point, it seems like every year, it's sort of a new look for every college basketball program. Yeah, there's turnover in college football, and you see plenty of new faces, and guys graduate and all that. But college basketball, it seems like every year, half the roster is all new faces. Lots of guys headed elsewhere in the portal, lots of guys coming in the portal, and of course, some freshmen as well. So as Jake Diebler was rebuilding his team this offseason, what were his priorities as he sort of put that roster together?
Experience, but it started with retention. Retention was how we wanted to build out this roster. The foundation, the core, however you want to put it, was retention. I think obviously the three guys, Bruce, John, and Devin, certainly highlight that, but also for us, the retention of guys like Tason, Colin, and Yvonne. Guys who are developing in our program was important too. Once we had those kind of pieces settled, we wanted to build out from there and complement those guys, because we know there's a foundation of what Bruce, Junior, and Devin can do, right? Like we know what they can do. And by all accounts of what we've seen so far, they're all going to continue to make a jump. As we tried to add to that, we felt like experience was important in the front court, increasing our size. Like we're going to be bigger, really at the 3, 4, and 5 positions. I feel like we're going to be bigger this year. That was important because rebounding was an issue for us last year. So we wanted to address that. But raise our collective basketball IQ. I think experience certainly plays a role in that, right? But those were things we were targeting, and I feel like we did really well with that.
Buckeyes completely rebuilt their front court. Two guys among that group that are healthy right now. Front court transfers Brandon Noel from Wright State and Christoph Tilley from Santa Clara. Those guys are actively out there participating in some of those summer workouts, and we'll get to the guy who's not healthy in a minute. But what has Jake Diebler seen so far from those two guys, and what did he see from them at their previous stops that really made them good fits?
Both of those guys have played a lot of college basketball, and I get they didn't play a lot of Big Ten basketball, but they've both been well coached. You could see on film and understanding of basketball IQ that I think will help the transition from their level to this level. But, Tilly's played high-level international basketball, which is a whole nother level, right? And that's going to be valuable. And I think Brandon and him both are really smart. You combine that basketball IQ with their skill level, being able certainly to make shots, but pass, make decisions, dribble, like that stuff, that combination, I think really is going to help that transition for them. And listen, we need them to be impactful, there's no question about it. But I don't think we need either of them to be the same player they were. We have other, like this is going to be the best team that both of those guys have played on. It's not that they haven't played on good teams, but the best collection of talent that they play on. And I think that they got to make an adjustment to that too. But the guys we have coming back got to make an adjustment to them because they're going to be important pieces for us.
Mentioned that there was a front court transfer who is not healthy yet. That is Josh Ojinyuwana from Baylor. He is still sort of working with the medical staff. Diebler did not have a timeline from him yet in terms of when he might really be able to be on the court and contributing to this year's Buckeye basketball team. But if he's not ready for the start of the season, who else, other than the two guys we just talked about, are they going to be looking at to help with maybe rebounding and defending the rim? You're going to hear him mention a couple guys by just their first names. It's Ivan Nagovin, who you will probably remember from last year, and freshman Amari Bynum.
I think Ivan's going to be really important, and Amari. I mean, both those guys, and both of them are capable, there's no question. We feel really confident in those two being able to step in and have an impact. I think Kristoff, I think Brandon, Devin's versatility, all of that's going to be important for us. But, feel really good on the way Ivan has improved since the end of the season to now. And he's got a window now to take an even bigger jump. So as long as he keeps working, he will. And Amari, we're super excited about his upside. He's got a physicality to him that most freshmen don't have. Certainly there's a size component to that, but he's got the height, he's got the length, he's got the athleticism, and he plays with a force and physicality that's been impressive to see for such a young player.
Talked earlier about all the turnover that you see during the course of the offseason, and the Buckeyes have taken 9 transfers into the program just over the 2 off seasons that Jake Diebler has been in charge. So is that more of a product of the coaching change and wanting to sort of set up for the systems he wants to run and what he wants to do as a coach? And it's, is that going to change now that he's maybe got more of his guys in place, or is that kind of turnover just maybe going to just be the new normal with the transfer portal?
Well, we want to be aggressive. I think as we continue to build out NIL and identify what that looks for, it allows us to certainly be impactful in the portal. But for me, when I envision this roster being built out for years to come, it's going to start with retention. There's going to be an element of development. Those two things, have to exist for us. I think it's important. We'll also continue to recruit high-level freshmen, but maybe not every freshman can come in and have an impact right away, right? But we're certainly going to be aggressive in the portal to complement the pieces we have, and sometimes the complement needs to be a high impact player, and we want to be able to have the flexibility in the spring to maneuver. As you guys have probably seen and gotten frustrated with the length it's taken to iron out the roster, we want flexibility in the spring. Sometimes that's going to be utilized in the portal. We've obviously been aggressive in the international space as well this year, but I think flexibility is key because whether it's guys going to the draft, changes, you want to make within your roster during portal season, having that flexibility is really important.
Buckeyes are going through a summer camp right now, brought a lot of former players into the facility to sort of work with the new guys and practice and scrimmage and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of a cool thing that you can do that. You'll hear him talk about a whole bunch of former Buckeyes who you will, I'm sure, remember fondly from their playing days who are now back working with the team. So, what has that been like having those former players back in the building and getting a chance for the current guys to get better?
The last couple of days are some of my favorite days of the year. And, a lot of those guys, when I was here working for Thad, I was training those guys in the summer. We would be in the gym. We'd have between 8 and 12 guys a day. I'd be in the gym from start with Mike Conley, who wanted to work out early so he could go golfing, to then have the guys who wanted to sleep in a little bit longer and work out. Like we just were in there for all morning and into the early afternoon. So I built a lot of great relationships. So there's an element for me personally, spending time with those guys and certainly following their careers that just, it's like nostalgic a little bit, right? The other side, obviously, for our program is a big deal. You know, you guys know how much I care about this program and how much I care about the greater Ohio State Hoops family. And this is the best display of that. We certainly feel elements of that. We felt elements of that all year long. Guys coming into practice, talking to the team, sending messages to guys on the team. My communication with former players throughout the year was consistent. But this is kind of a culmination of that, right? You get to feel it and see it. And my favorite moments during these last couple of days are when I see like D'Angelo Russell grab Bruce Thornton or John Mobley and put his arm around him and talk through, you know, leadership, or Scoonie Penn's around talking through ball screen stuff, and you got Greg Oden working with Devon. That like one-on-one former player to current player interaction is my favorite part. And we had a ton of that the last couple of days. We had a ton of it on the court. We had some of it in the weight room. We had some of it, you know, off the court at dinner. Like it just, that part is my favorite. I'm so thankful for our former players, and quite honestly, how much they care and love this program and their investment in our current guys.
Another one of the transfers that they brought in is Gabe Cupps. He was a former Mr. Basketball in Ohio. He started his career at Indiana. So what can Gabe Cupps bring to this year's team?
Yeah, well, I think some of that's got to play out, right? But the one thing I know about Gabe is he's really tough. He knows the game at a high level. And, you know, his intangibles, that the way he can impact the game may not always show up, right, with stats. However, he also can produce. He can make shots. He knows how to read the game coming off ball screens and zoom actions, which we're going to be doing a lot of. So the biggest thing for me is I've recruited Gabe, right, first time around, and I think there was, when he went before, there was a comfortability that's helpful at that time of year because stuff happens so fast. That was helpful. I knew him, known his dad for a long time, but I've just always, even when I first saw him play, you know, I think we might have been the first time major to offer him, and I certainly pushed for that, you know, rather quick. But I've just always seen part of me in him. He's better than I was, you know, but I've always seen a lot of who I was as a player in him, and that I like that, and I think it impacts winning. I think it's important. I think it's impactful. We felt like we needed to raise kind of our team internal leadership, and I think he certainly does that. I think Devin getting older and John getting older helps with that, but we needed to bring some outside voices in too to help with that and help Bruce do that. So he'll provide all of that stuff. I'm really excited. He's been great, what we've seen so far. And, you know, but I think as far as, you know, the specifics, that's got to play out over time.
One of the returning players who you did not see at all last season is Tason Chapman. He missed all of last season with an injury. So what's his status? Is he full go now? Are there any concerns or reservations about Tason Chapman at the moment?
He didn't seem to have any yesterday when we were scrimmaging. You know, he looked like, I think there's probably, I'm sure for him, some relief being out there playing in some 5-on-5 setting that's, you know, as game-like as you can have this time of year, right? I think that part for him was really good. The speed of the game, like there will be an adjustment to get back used to that, the physicality, like that stuff you can't simulate, right, when you're out and injured. But I've been really impressed with just his commitment to working and getting better and getting ready for now what is our, you know, our summer training sessions. And he's not behind, he's not, you know, apprehensive. He's out there, he's in the mix, he's playing hard, he's being aggressive. So, you know, for us, if you walked into the gym and you watched, you wouldn't see a guy out there and say like, man, he looks like a guy coming off injury. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really good thing. And
finally, it seemed like towards the end of last season, Bruce Thornton, the sort of do-it-all point guard for Ohio State, was really just he was put in a spot where he was maybe being asked to do a little bit too much. So was getting him some more help in the backcourt a priority this offseason?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, as the season went on last year, we tried to move Bruce around and, you know, in the half court, certainly because he was so efficient as a scorer, right? But it was a heavy load that we asked him to carry last year. And, you know, being able to have guys create for him sometimes makes it easier for him and also made us harder to guard. So we feel like we have way more playmaking in general which will be really helpful for us. There's going to be a lot more space on the court, which is something we tried to do going into last season, but as the season wore on, we weren't able to do it the level we wanted to. We're going to be able to play with more pace this year. We played faster than Ohio State's played in a long time. However, it wasn't at the level we'd like to get to. I think the collective basketball IQ will help with that. The space will help with that. So, listen, it's hard as a coach, right? Because you want Bruce out there every minute, all the time, and involved in everything. But there's a reality to it. And so I feel like this roster is more equipped to, have some more versatility, variability offensively, which will be important for us. And then guys being able to pray for him be able to pray for others, and that should happen a little bit more.
Well, that'll do it for the Jake Diebler report on the Ohio State basketball team. I'm sure we'll be talking a little more Buckeye basketball in the coming days and weeks. But of course, we're going to be talking a lot more football. We will have a bunch of reporting this week coming up on what are expected to be. We're expecting probably some commitments in the coming days and coming weeks. We'll have all sorts of shows for you on that whenever those all sort of break. And of course, plenty of news on how this weekend's visits went. Plenty of news on where things stand with the Buckeyes in terms of this year's class and some of the future classes as they're sort of filling out that 2026 class, but already taking a pretty deep look at 2027 and even 2028, bringing in a lot of players for visits, bringing in a lot of players for camps, and then potentially be starting to add to those commitment lists as well. So we're going to be talking about all of that at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We hope you can join us there. Got our whole team covering not only the current program and the current players and coaches, but recruiting, X's and O's, and more. That is all at BuckeyeHuddle.com and YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.